Do you like to read? I certainly like to read. I'm a big fan of reading. Ever since I was a kid, I read all the classics like Roald Dahl, Enid Blyton, and all of these books. But lately, and I know it's just probably not me, a lot of people have been finding it very difficult to concentrate on reading and enjoying books, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. But over the last month or two, I've finally been able to get my interest back in all of this. I've been going through my Kindle. In today's video, I'm going to go through my Kindle and look at all the books. Not all of the books, I'm going to share some of them, and why I finished some books and why I couldn't continue with other books. Like, I'm very quick at deciding, does this book have anything emotionally interesting enough for me to pursue it with it? And reflecting on that can be very interesting. Now, firstly, here's the Kindle up here. I use the Kindle. As for physical books, to take you for a little tour, you see I take a very, what you could call minimalist approach to physical books. And that's simply because even though I live near a few really big bookstores in the UK, like Foyles and Waterstones, I simply think that I'm very unlikely to read a book twice, especially if it's fiction. So why buy it and then just sits around and you've got nothing to do with it? So, the books. Right, there's a few here that we'll just start with very simply. So, okay, there's a book on here called Very Important People. And this was interesting. And the reason I looked at this book is because I know a few people who work in club promoting in the middle of London. And I was also really fascinated by the social aspect of that world. It's its own world with its own moving components, people like promoters, the girls, the DJs and everything like that, and it functions in its own way. So I actually did finish that book because anything to do with looking at an aspect of society and human nature is very interesting. What else have I got? Now this one was very popular. We're moving more to fiction, and this is The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And quite a few people probably have come across this book, and I'm going to try and remember what it was about. It's got to 34%, which means, what does that mean? That means I was a third invested in the book, psychologically. I got kind of into it, but I didn't feel like finishing it. And this book was all about sort of a guy reflecting on his loves and relationships, a very introspective guy, and I found it very interesting, so I'll probably pick that up again. We've got another one called The Wisdom of the Ancients. So this is more to do with going back to really obscure societies, or as Russell Brand might say, when we go back and look at the wisdom of the ancients, when they really used to delve deep within their psyches and their souls to assess the really fabric of time within themselves and contemplate the evolving state of nature and being. No, I like it. I like his vocabulary. The Wisdom of the Ancients is all about going to very obscure societies and history and seeing what we can learn from the way that they ran everything. Obviously, you've got the laws of human nature, which I find a really strange one because there's 48 laws of human nature, and you can read through all of them, and yes, you can see them and understand how they're reflected in people. But to carry around with you all these 48 things in your head, you'd think that you wouldn't have to remember it all. It would just be innate. So it's a great read, but in terms of remembering it all, I think unless you have an incredible working memory, it's not going to happen. What else do I have? I've got a book called Swipe to Unlock. So that's for anyone who's interested in how psychology and technology intersect. That's how people use technology the psychology of technology to really hook people into using devices and software. What else have we got? We've got a book called Exactly, which is, I finished that one basically, 80%. Exactly is all about the history of precision within essentially the development of industrialization. So go back 200 years, we had really imprecise units of measurements and tools, and then every few years we became 10 times more precise, 10 times more precise. And that evolution, I thought was really, really fascinating. Moving on to the next page, we've got, there are a few others here. There's a book called Get to the Point. That's how you write in a way so you're being very clear, succinct, and you say everything you can in as few words as possible. It's probably not my natural style. I don't enjoy that style. I enjoy the style I'm doing now, which is just elaborating off the top of my head. Also got a good one called Pachinko, which is one of the few fiction books on here that I actually almost finished. I mean, in fact, I got to 96%. And that is all about a South Korean, I think it was about a Korean type of, it's a parlor, sort of a gambling parlor with lots of machines to gamble with, and a kind of story about someone who became successful at that, and their life and the interaction with Japan. That's a pretty good perspective on a totally different era and culture from the one that I've experienced. Oh yeah, of course, got to show this one. We've got, show the camera, Elon Musk. Be surprised if someone didn't have something Elon Musk related on their reading list. For example, all I can think of right now is that bit in an interview recently where he was interviewed saying, yeah, well, the thing about Dogecoin is that Dogecoin originally started as like a meme coin. But then when the meme coin becomes the real thing with value, that's very interesting to me. So thanks Elon for being around here. I've got a few others. I've got a biomedical engineering textbook, which is about 1,000 pages long. Now I wouldn't recommend downloading a textbook with color pages and fine diagrams and writing on something as small as an original black and white Kindle. It really makes no sense at all. But it's a subject I find very interesting because it's all about learning all the areas of science to be able to invent medical innovations. And obviously, it's a bit like being a cross between Robert Downey Jr. in the Avengers and kind of Mother Teresa. What else do we have? We have bitcoins and blockchains, got 24% into that. I am interested in it, but I think all of us have a level of technical interest that we're comfortable with this. For me, this book was a bit too zoomed in on the detail, and there's just too much detail to process, so I backed out of that book. Moving on, okay. As you can see, there's a bit of a theme here, so I'll zoom in on these two, which hopefully the camera will pick up now. Exactly, Atomic Habits, huge productivity book. Everyone loves this book. It really tells you exactly how to break down and implement habits. And Deep Work, which is now quite ancient, not ancient book, but it's really about how do you focus in on things by removing as many distractions as possible. Let's see, what else have we got there? We got Jordan Peterson, The 12 Rules for Life. Jordan, would you like to tell us a little bit about the book? Yeah, absolutely. So when I wrote this book, I was going through all this anguish, worrying about really what was happening in society for men. And I realized that apart from cleaning up your room, success in life reduced down to 12 fundamental rules. And it's a multi-million copy bestseller. I invite you to read it. Buy it now. It's fantastic. Thanks for that, Jordan. As the theme, a lot of non-fiction. I don't know, I think the difference is with non-fiction, it's factual, it's objective, you learn from it. With fiction, because there is such a wide range of people and personalities in the world with different experiences, it's very difficult to have lived enough of a range of life to be able to relate to any of it. So you're reading about someone's experience, but you cannot relate at all. You cannot empathize, you cannot understand any of the references or way of thinking. So I think that it can be useful, but you need at least a little bit of connection already there to get into it. What else do we have here? We're going quite far back now. Okay, we got a few horror books, like short compilation stories and horror from classic writers like Lovecraft. We've got... See, there's a lot of samples as well, which means that you didn't even get through the first chapter. And I quite like the innovation of being able to read the first chapter, because in my experience, if it doesn't hook you in the first chapter, it's rarely going to start kind of sticking with you. Okay, here's an interesting one. We've got Anthony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within.
So, everybody say hi.
I'm Anthony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. You know how his style of interaction is. He'll look in the mirror and says, one day I just woke up and I realized what was going on in my life. So I said, I gotta get into a new mental state. Action creates emotion. Oh, it's really hard to talk like him in his voice, but I've got him. I've got a book called The Misanthrope, which is a French play all about someone who has a particularly not great view on humanity in general, and that's a play I actually performed in a couple of years ago. A lot of these, so we've got a lot of these. We've got the old short introduction to series, which I don't know if we've got that outside the UK, but they're great. So I've got Scientific Revolution, 20%, Modern China, 1%. This video is actually really good. I'm realizing that I need to get back into and finish these. I want to finish the Modern China one. Roman Empire, 0%. Strange. And a short introduction to thought, 22%. So that's more philosophy, but I find often when I start getting into philosophy, I start getting a bit too introspective about everything. Moving on, we have all kinds of strange things. So existential things, we've got things like Reclaim Your Brain, we've got Cubed, which is all about the cubicle structure of life. If you look at an American series such as Corporate, if anyone's seen that, which is really funny. We have got Doing Business in the Middle East. Well, I've not done business in the Middle East. I did go to Dubai for 1 month when I used to tutor a long time ago. But most of that time was just spent tutoring. But the business side is pretty interesting, actually. We have a bunch of different things about different types of people. So HSPCs, highly sensitive people. We have Myers-Briggs type breakdowns. The chimp paradox. Now we're going really, really far back. We've got, what else is worth mentioning here? Stephen King. Although for me, it's strange. I never find it as horrifying as people say that these books will be. They go into such a narrative about every character, giving the backstory, too much dialogue, not enough action to my tastes. We got a book about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, how thoughts, behaviors, emotions, words are all linked together. We have, see, I love all of these books. So future stuff, Black Mirror stuff, dystopian stuff, The Rise of the Robots, which I didn't get through the sample, which is very strange. Then, see what else we have. 80,000 Hours, which is all about, that's an organization that tells you how to really find fulfillment in what you do in life. Going. I'm definitely seeing a theme as I go further back. The Naked Trader, obviously that's a pretty popular book all about, it's a marketing gimmick, I guess, to sell the book, but yeah, the fundamentals of just trading from home. And then there are just a bunch of PDFs. So, key takeaways from looking through my Kindle. I tended to finish non-fiction books. I tended to bail out of fiction books a lot of time. But also because you don't have a physical book, you often have that sense of object impermanence. You forget what is on the Kindle. You forget things that you purchased. You forget things that you wanted to read. And so there's a lot to go back on there. If you particularly liked any of the books that I've mentioned in this video, or you have your own views on fiction versus non-fiction, then let everyone know and say hello as well. And yeah, that's my take on the world of books at the moment. See you.